All right, boys. Welcome to the second live stream for Unstoppable's Domainer Q&A. Today we have Ishmaeli as usual, and joining us today new is Domain Gaffer Daniel, who's been around Twitter for a while. He and I have had a good little relationship going back and forth. We're glad to have you here, boys.
Yeah, man. Are we calling it Unstoppable Q&A? We need an official name for this, right? If we're
I
gonna do it.
know. Making domaining
Unstoppable,
sexy again is
Unstoppable
a mouthful.
School. Making domain sexy again, Unstoppable School. Maybe the audience can help us with a name for this weekly podcast that we're trying to kick off here, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we need some name suggestions, so drop those below in the chat and we will get those going. Ish, I just sent you the link.
Okay, I'll definitely share it.
For the right group of people to ask, I think. It should be good ideas
Exactly.
there. Thanks for
Yeah.
having
So we are in the midst of $5 Fridays, live at Unstoppable Domains. If you're feeling inspired by any of the conversation topics you hear today, then jump on over to Unstoppable and get up to 100 .coms for $5 each. Enjoy the sale. We've also got $1 Wednesdays and $5.50 off transfers in. So a bunch of opportunities for you to take advantage of. And yeah, without any further ado, let's get into it. So Daniel, why don't you tell us just some background about your experience in domaining, how you got into it, and what your current hustle is?
Sure. Thanks, Brady. I've been in the space, actively investing for the past about 2.5 years. In regular sales, sort of 18 months. Came in, I think, by a lot of people these days via crypto. Although, of course, I use the web, for the past 20 plus years, and had even owned some domains before. You hadn't really utilized them or didn't sort of click that, this might be a space to invest in. The old story of not really looking into it far enough. I sort of had the idea I was aware of, I think, the dot-com bubble and thinking, okay, prices have peaked and they're never going to go back up, or that you only rent the domains, you don't actually own it. And I didn't sort of look into it far enough to go, okay, actually there is a form of ownership there. So yeah, I actually had, I think after being involved in crypto a bit and sort of, clocking onto the idea of investing in general a bit more, I actually had COVID. And so as I was bedridden, I was sort of, I can't remember exactly how, but I think I stumbled upon Domain Sherpa, I think I was looking for podcasts to listen to. And so, yeah, sort of via Domain Sherpa, I enjoyed the conversation. And as soon as I sort of started looking at names, I sort of, I think we can all relate to your imagination going wild, which isn't always a very good thing for the wallet. And so I think I went through that common experience of being pretty creative to start with, and then over time reining that in, and refining the name choice. And I've really enjoyed that. I love language. I love the power of words. And so that's what's really captured and kept my interest with it. And the ability to create and build on the names is something that I've always got in the back of my mind when I'm choosing a name.
Yeah, talk about that. So I know you've played around with bolt.new, as has Ish. So yeah, talk about your selection of names in relation to that goal, and then your actual experience building up.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah. So it's still very early days with that. So I've built something just for fun, but I really like the bolt.new sort of workflow. I've got minimal coding experience, so that helps a little bit, but I certainly rely heavily on the AI a component of that. I think when selecting a name now, I'm a lot better at sort of picking a name that that I would want to build on if I was in that industry, or maybe I know somebody in that industry and can maybe leverage some of their knowledge as well. So the thing the main thing I've sort of developed, and again, it's just for fun for a friend, is if I can share that here, is datesean.com, and it's Sean with a U. Don't have the W version to pass all the radio tests yet.
Say it again.
So Date Sean, so DATE, and then SHAUN. But I think the Irish version, the SCAN, also redirects. But it's just the concept is just so for my single friend looking for a partner, wanting to sort of give him a space to sort of, just as a bit of fun, just sort of advertise himself out there. So like we printed off business cards. So he's got with DaveSean.com on them, and he can just sort of, pass them to.
What's the URL?
It's Dave Sean.
DAVESHUN.com.
DATE. So what's that? Delta Alpha Tango Echo, and then
Yeah, I'll share it.
Hotel Alpha Unicorn November. Yeah, that's the one.
Also, I'm getting a lot of feedback from one of you. Let's see who it is. It's you-ish. Do you have?
Oh yeah, let me turn off my
Now it's better.
Yeah, I had my Twitter feed on. Sorry about
Oh yeah, that'll do it. Okay, yeah, it sounds a lot better now. Cool. So date Sean.
Yeah, so it's
Sean's a popular guy.
Yeah, well, added a few testimonials there, and then there's just a song that's. So I wrote the lyrics to the song, but then fed them into suno.com, so SUNO.com, which is one of the AI songwriting tools. And yeah, that came up with a brief prompt. It came up with a melody, and the music itself sort of as an extra bit of promotion.
Do you mind scrolling it up a little bit? Yeah, I think this is pretty cool, man. Like, this is a very interesting situation here. You're building a site for a guy to find love. I love it.
I don't know if, I wonder what the lady's reaction is. If you have a whole website dedicated to it, you might be trying too hard.
Yeah, it's a little bit of marketing. It is what it is. but it's a fun use case of that domain name, and I think that that's something that you could actually earn a living. There are a lot of people out there that are now connecting online, and if you're able to help them in their pursuit of love by building something like this, it's a fun way to sort of like get more visibility, I guess. You know what I mean? So there's definitely some sort of service that could spin off this. You'd be surprised how many people connect on dating websites and go on and get married and live productive, fruitful lives and have kids and everything, right? So that's the norm now, right? So if you're taking that further with a prompt, I can tell you built that with like bolt.me. But how long did it take you to put that together? A couple of minutes?
Exactly. It's very quick, and obviously there's a bit of finessing it, but the initial site, I was blown away.
No, I like that because domainers typically, and this is part of what I've been trying to emphasize, we're so focused on just flipping names, and I feel like the real value is in building names, because that's actually a easier way to flip names. So you take that domain name, date Sean, like what is the value of that as a naked domain? It's subjective. Would say less than $1,000, right? But what you built there could be a template that it could be date Brady, right? It could be date whoever, and people see the visual.
Is that what you're telling me?
No, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, Brady, but I'm using an example, right?
Yeah.
I'm making an example, but you get my point. It's like that creates a template, and you could spin that off into a service, and you could say we charge $500. This is a sample site, right? And you'd be surprised, with a little ad campaign or a little bit of marketing, how that could turn into something that could potentially make it $25,000 a month. I love it.
Yeah, I think these AI development tools are pretty serious. I came across one the other day, dev.fun. Did you guys see this? They launched, or they at least announced their raise.
Oh, nice.
And you guys have maybe heard of pump.fun, which is a way to deploy tokens like meme coins generally very rapidly on Solana.
Yeah.
And all you do is type the name of the ticker and a description. If you have a Twitter and a Telegram, you can input those links, and then it inputs into a bonding curve where people can jump in and bet on these tokens before they go to decentralized exchanges. And then if it blows up and there's a chat, and if you gain steam, then it graduates to being tradable on a DEX, and then it can really blow up. And basically so much of Solana's GDP has pumped through pump.fun in the
They're making
past.
about $3 million a day in revenue.
It's
In
insane.
fees.
They were just printing money, and it was a slog to get there. So they abstracted away like generation of the smart contracts to be able to launch a meme coin. And now these guys, dev.fun, have taken care of the bolt.new side of development. So now you can just type in, a prompt of whatever site you want to build. If it's, the other day I tried to make Degens anonymous. It didn't go very well because this, whatever their infrastructure is, does not actually build apps very, very well.
Right.
But my idea was like, you have a room of Pepes that you're in, and you enter it, and then there's just like round robin questioning, like deep, like philosophical questioning about your life. And then you answer one of the questions, and then the room roasts you, and then you can tip people for roasting you well or giving you good life advice. Just like group therapy, basically. So I tried to build that. It didn't go very well, like got a little ways. And then let me see if I can find it actually.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, I've never heard of dev.fun, but what I can add is I love what the .fun CLD is shaping up to be. And it speaks to like how culture influences the adoption of certain CLDs. Like we obviously all know what .ai is doing in the AI realm. Fun is sort of like carving out itself to become useful in many cases. I saw DeFi.fun just sold for almost $30,000, which I think was a record for public sales for .fun. There are a lot of people that have had other similar successful flips with .fun domains, but seeing something like dev.fun, it's pretty cool to see these so-called funny CLDs being put to use to build, these new tools that are emerging because of AI and crypto. And
Totally.
I think pump.fun had a lot of influence in that.
Absolutely. They've totally set the bar there. And I think that's probably the most popular .fun domain.
For sure. But it made other people go, I can use a .fun and build a meaningful business. I mean, pump.fun is by far a multi-billion-dollar business if you want to talk about valuation. They're doing $3 million a day on a good day. And, do the math. They are actually the trenches.
Totally. Here's my app. It's pretty shitty, you can tell.
No, but this is a pretty cool concept.
But it's a great concept. And the fact that I could at least feel bold enough to endeavor to put this thing together in like an hour. Now, granted, It doesn't really work, but to even go through it, and then the image is AI generated, so like the whole thing, you can slap together extremely quickly, and you can just tell on the website in the same way that, like, let's see, can you guys see still? Let me see, share my screen again. But you can just see all the various apps coming through on the site. Like people are making these
This is pretty cool.
At the rate of like a few a minute. And then there's native integration of the token into the app so that you can do tipping, or it can cost money to do certain actions in the app. And just like, so now the barrier to entry has been reduced significantly to be able to spin up apps that have native token integrations. And so this is like
This is amazing, man. I'm so glad you shared this. I had no idea this was a thing,
Yeah. So if you're feeling, it's even less degenerate actually, because you actually have to put in work and like maintain the coin instead of just making memes and vibe posting on Twitter.
Right.
But I think it's very exciting. And again, it's pretty rough around the edges, but we're in the very early innings of just this Cambrian explosion of apps that's going to come to the internet.
And I don't know if Gaffer agrees with me. I think that this opens up the next phase of domain investing. I call it the golden age of domain investing, where you're going to be able to take a domain and have so much. I mean, a domain always had the utility of being able to be built into a website. But because of AI, I think that, people like Brady, myself, I think both of you have more coding experience than I do. But ever since I found out about bolt.new, and now I use v0.dev, I use others. There are others out there like Creator with the number 8. The ability to just buy a domain name and turn it into a meaningful landing page in a couple of minutes, it's very empowering for domainers because that leads into other revenue streams. Now you can figure out a way to get traffic in, right? And someone will say, oh, I like what you built here, and I want to buy that from you and take it to the next level, or I want to partner with you and take it to the next level. I did something the other day. One of my domains was AI Marketing Conference, and we're going to build an actual conference in October called AI Marketing Conference. This is the name that I hand registered. I had it listed for a lot of money. I've turned down some, I think I turned down a $5,000 offer for it. But as a marketer who understands the impact of AI, I feel like that name is a gold mine. And so I've been able to connect with some investors that are going to help me bring this vision to life of doing the AI Marketing Conference. So if you go on aimarketingconference.com, we're able to build a website that explains the vision, right? And in the phase that we are right now, where we're trying to raise the money for it, I can show people what we're trying to build. They can visualize it. They can see. So the questions they ask are more meaningful, and I'm able to get closer to the goal. We're trying to raise $250,000 to make this happen. And, just having the website, we can now build a list. We can actually have people start applying to speak. We can explain what we're trying to do and sort of like work it backwards versus, oh, we have to, we have this idea, read this deck. People can actually see this thing. It's almost like building in public. And I'm super excited about the ability to build real life businesses very rapidly leveraging AI. And this is a site that I personally built with a couple of prompts.
Yeah, it certainly conveys a lot of legitimacy, like right off the bat.
For sure.
And not even that, but like there's an enormous power in understanding the power, like the potential in a domain by just putting up a form. I know that some domainers have the strategy where you have a domain, you want to understand like the traffic to it and like what the potential of building out something there is before you start building it, and just being able to prompt together an interest form that lets people enter their emails. Like you can validate your idea much, much, much quicker now before you pour a ton of resources into it.
Free, for free. That's the key thing, is the cost.
Completely free.
I got a question for you, Gaffer. What has been the most difficult lesson for you in your domaining journey? What has been the biggest mistake you think you've made so far?
It's a good question. I mean, I suppose the first thing that springs to mind is the I probably jumped in a bit too quickly with the outlay of capital without doing the learning. So I've since done the Domain Name Academy, Michael Seiger's course, and obviously listening to things like Your Spaces, Domain Sherpa, Domain Name Wire. So while I was listening to those some of those podcasts recently early on, I didn't sort of understand some of those fundamentals that I think Michael Seiger's course is so good at sort of laying out in a reasonably concise way, although there's a lot of material there. If I'd had my time again, I think I would have done that right at the start, and then maybe a bit more like I think I mean, Tony Names, his approach seems to be really good in that it sounded like he sort of started, he didn't sort of overcapitalize. He only spent the income he generated, I think is my understanding. So whereas I was sort of willing to take a bit more of a risk, and I think, hopefully now it's sort of starting to pay off, I think, and I've been able to stay in the space.
Right.
But yeah, it's a bit more risky than it needs to be, I think.
So in summary, you would advise new domainers to make sure they start out with the education first, right?
Yeah, and fair enough to do all a bit, just for a bit of fun, or or build something straight away, or I think as you've recommended, I'd certainly take that approach now. So that's the first thing that springs to mind.
Yeah, and there's so many resources for that. This is one resource for that. Hopefully, that's what we're trying to build here, is a way to sort of like, casually inform people on best practices and the fundamentals like you alluded to. I think that one of the most typical mistakes, that people make is assuming it's an easy thing, right? Oh, I could just buy this name. I'm a genius. I found this name. The psychology of it is you feel it's a treasure hunt that could be very addictive, but you have to exercise some sort of restraint and discipline. Otherwise, you can easily get in trouble. You actually could easily accrue a bunch of liabilities disguised as assets, you know? I think with time, people realize that, and sometimes it's a bit frustrating. I think people could be a bit forward thinking sometimes. Oh, this is a new trend, and I'm going to register all the names in this trend, and that trend might not emerge till a decade later. And, you know, if that's the strategy you want to abide by, then you have to understand what the expectations are, right? If you're buying into a futuristic trend, like let's say humanoid robots or whatever, or decentralized men or something crazy like that, right? There's nothing wrong with those names, especially leveraging Unstoppable's affordable hand registration price points, but manage your expectations with those type of names. You know what I mean? There are names that are hot right now, and there are names that we speculate will get hot later, right?
Yeah, I think part of the risk as well is the high renewal fees on certain TLDs. I was going to ask you both like around dot fund because I think that's premium renewal. And if I can mention one of your recent ish sales, is AI.cv that you sold as
Yeah, I
well.
sold AI.cv for $20,000.
Yeah, which is just such a great sale. And so how do you, can I ask, like, how do you have that conviction? Like, obviously, AI.cv is a great name,
I think I
standalone.
undersold it.
Yes, well, that's another topic I'd love to talk about as well is underselling or not, because it's so hard to, because often that seller's remorse can come into it, but at the same time it gives you that's so much capital to then reinvest in
Of course.
even better names. So yeah, with that, what gave you the conviction with say AI.cv or another name to sort of be willing to pay that premium renewal? Did you think were you confident that you could sell that within the year or?
So it's a great question. When I pick up this alternate CLDs, I've learned from experience to always check the renewal price. So whether it's a .cv or a .xyz, that's a key part of my selection process, right? I own some .xyz names like rmx.xyz, guestlist.xyz, remitter.xyz, and they all have standard renewals. AI.cv had a standard renewal. And the .cv extension in general has a very, very affordable renewal price point. So that is a big part of my decision making, right? I always make sure that the renewal is sustainable, for lack of better words. Some CLDs have a standard renewal, io.ai, it's the same price regardless of the length or the name or whatever, right? And some of them have a tiered structure where certain words or certain domain names will be more expensive than others. And people blindly will buy some names and not be aware of what the renewal fees are. So with AI.cv, the renewal is the same as any other .cv name. And the .cv extension in general doesn't have, I believe they have some tiers, but it's typically very affordable.
Are there other TLDs which have that flat fee structure?
Yes, there are several. You just have to do your due diligence,
Any that you recommend?
I think in the scope of things, you have to be very careful with GCLDs because, you see a lot of people posting sales, but they're sitting on a lot of bags as well. You know what I mean? I just think that it's important that when you buy a name, like I said on the last episode, you have to realize it's a subscription. And like any other subscription, you want to be aware of what the terms are. And you want to be comfortable with those terms and and manage your expectations. So always be alert. Always be aware of what the renewal fee is for any name that you own. This is the reason one of the great talking points of a .com is it's a flat renewal fee and it's affordable, right? I think .co just recently increased their renewals. I know that .art did the same. I'm a stakeholder in an extension called .hip hop. I believe they have a tiered structure. So this is part of the due diligence and what you have to do as an investor is be aware of what those renewal fees are.
Yeah. And you guys use TLDs, TLDES.com for checking prices and things like this?
That's a good one, I'm sure. I haven't looked that one up, but there are other ones. I think there's TLD prices or TLD-prices.com if I'm not mistaken. But there are websites that will show you these renewal fees for sure. But remember, the renewal fees could vary name by name. Just make sure that whatever name you have, you can always ask the registrar, what the renewal fee is.
Right. Yeah, we get a lot of traffic through TLDES.com. I just love how simple the interface is. It's very easy to look everything up. But yeah, they don't have the premium pricing here. I wonder if there's one with premium pricing.
Yeah, which leads to another question for Domain Gaffer. What tools do you currently use?
Yeah, I guess I like to try out quite a few and then settle on the ones that work best for me. I use that. I certainly use that TLDs site. I think it's Michael Seiger built one recently for checking renewal prices. I can't remember the URL, but yeah, I guess yeah, expireddomains.net is a go-to. That's a daily check for me.
That's the pump.fun of domain investing.
Wait, what is it?
Expireddomains.net.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I quite like that. I know it's sort of pretty old school, but I quite like. I really like spreadsheets for some reason. So I like the interface. I'm sure it could be improved in some way, but.
And can you guys walk me through, like, what's your process when you're in expireddomains.net? What are you doing here?
Great question. I think this is the most important website for domain investing. So expired domains, every day there are 90,000 names that expire. And this is sort of like a website that allows people to search those names. You can set different filters. But when I go on expired domains, I sort of like have a process, which I don't really care to share publicly. Everyone has their own different filters and keywords that they search for. But honestly, this is where you find names that, um, have some sort of like age to them. Maybe a name just got dropped. So if you scroll up and you click on, first of all, you have to log in. So you would have to create an account. Yeah,
I'm not sure if I have one.
yeah, I think you should definitely have one. If not, are you a domainer if you're not an expired domains?
Wow, I'm exposed. Now, fair enough.
Then we have the hand registration bandit over here. Why don't you just take your screen off and set up an account and then we can go through it.
All right, let me do that real quick.
Yeah, but expired domains allows you to search like expired names. There've been a lot of great names on here. I bought names on expired domains that I've been able to resell very rapidly because maybe someone went out of business and didn't renew a name or whatever the case might be. But it's a very, very valuable resource. How do you use expired domains, Domain Gaffer?
It's evolved a bit and it's still evolving. I guess I'm still keen to learn. I've got some keyword lists that I sort of check regularly, and I use the marketplace. So at the moment, like for a while there, I was doing like daily checks. I'm based in Australia, and so I guess for me, options tend to end in the middle of the night. So that's another sort of link in my process, I guess. But so usually what I do is sort of at the end, like in the evening at some point, I'll restrict the filter to just shows on the marketplace lists. So I think it's got, Dynadot, GoDaddy, Namecheap,
Right.
Catched. And so I'll go through each one and restrict it to like, ending within 24 hours. And then I'll search by, registered names or TLDs. I know that's that number of, or SLDs registered in that TLD. I know
what's very helpful for that is .db. That's like a great tool for that.
Yeah, I want to learn more about getting the best out of .db. So
yeah, .db is a great tool. Most successful domainers use .db because it allows you to see what how many TLDs a name is taken in. They have different price points. You can see what sites are developed, so that gives you great leads. So outbound to. So let's say I put in date Sean, .fun, and I saw that, there was a dateshawn.net. I might be able to reach out to them. Hey, by the way, we have dateshawn.com or .fun, and more than likely they'll show some interest. Let's go back to expireddomains.net, and I'll walk you through sort of like the surface level on how to use it to find expired names. So when these names go on, when a name is not renewed, it goes into a process, and then eventually goes into auction. And if it's not picked up in the auction, it goes into closeout. Starts at $50. The next day it goes down to $40. The next day it goes down to $30, $11, $5. And eventually it goes back into the cycle for renewal. So you can find a lot of great deals that went through the auction and no one identified them as a gem. and then they go into expired. So if you go on the very top, scroll up, and you click marketplace domains, and you click GoDaddy. I usually go on GoDaddy. If you click closeout domains, these are names that you can buy instantly. They have a buy now price on them. As you can see, it's sorted out by GoDaddy's valuation. So that very first name, meikutv.com. If you look, it'll tell you the LE stands for length, right? There's 7 characters in that name. The BL stands for the backlinks, right? So sometimes these names have more value because they have good quality backlinks. I see you sorted out by backlinks, right? You see names like a name like freeimagead.com. To me, right, there are other tools that you can use to analyze that name. If you like the aesthetics of that name, right? Now, you can see that name has a lot of backlinks. It also tells you when the name was registered, right? It tells you, what other extensions the name is taken in. The N stands for .net, the O stands for .org, the B stands for .biz, the I believe, stands for .io, and the D stands for I think it's .de if I'm not mistaken. It tells you when the name was added on expired domain names. It gives you the monthly traffic, and it gives you some sort of subjective valuation as well. So I basically would search through this. It's sort of like dumpster diving or treasure hunting or urban mining or whatever you want to call it. But you could find some good names on here that have been overlooked. If we sometimes people spend hours going through this daily list, and it's in perpetuity. This happens all day long. So, a name like Marine Parts Global, go back to that one.
That's a
Click
decent
on
name.
that real quick.
Probably my favorite on that list.
Yeah, so you can see it gives you some sort of like comparables, but if you scroll down, it gives you more details. Like this name was hand registered. Scroll up a little bit. That name was hand registered, a year and a month ago. To me, that's not the best indication of a great name.
Mm.
And then what I would do, personally speaking, before I look into buying a name like this is I would just Google search those keywords, Marine Parts Global. You'd be surprised what you find when you do that. So why don't we just check if there's a company called Marine Parts Global? There you go. So these are the words that come up: marketplace, marine spare parts. So there's actually no company called Marine Parts Global, but sometimes you'll find a company called marinepartsglobal.org or .net, and now you have a chance to get there at .com. So you've identified where your potential prospect is.
Right. And we can go to SEMrush too and check out Marine Parts
Exactly.
Global,
You can use tools like SEMrush to check out those keywords. I
which
can
has
show you
nothing.
the keyword. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Those are
probably
not good
too
keywords.
specific, but Marine Parts itself has
Yeah. There you go. There you go. So marine parts, there's marinepartsource.com. And if this is a great way to sort of like get into that industry. If you wanted to build out something that's like an affiliate site or whatever, that's the name that you could probably acquire for that. But obviously not every name on expired domain names is worth picking up. There's more trash than gems on there. So you have to be very diligent and have a process.
Can you talk about? I want to get more into the data side of things and analyzing a name objectively in that way. Around the SEO,
Sure.
for example. Can you talk about like a bit like what you're looking for specifically and what it sort of means to have some of those metrics?
So I try not to pay too much attention to the SEO initially because, at the end of the day, a good name sells itself, right? It's almost like a pretty girl doesn't have to tell you, I'm beautiful, right? You could just see with your eyes that that's a beautiful girl. Just like a piece of art, right? Oh, that's a beautiful piece of art. So I think the name itself has to sort of meet a checklist of fundamentals, right? Obviously, short, memorable, or meaningful batch of keywords. So if we look through this list right here, I don't care how many keywords SZBKDH01.com has. It's not a good name to me, right? That's not, somebody else might use other tools and other ways to evaluate that name, but to me, that's trash, right?
And someone's gaming it with all these backlinks.
Yeah, the thing about the backlinks thing is that's another area of study that I don't think we have the bandwidth to discuss today. People think, oh, it's a SEO, like SEO's put it in SEMrush. There's a lot of analytics that goes into that. There are a lot of, bad backlinks. You have to actually look at, what the domain name has been used for in the past, right? Some people use them to build private blog networks, which is somewhat controversial. But at the end of the day, the number of backlinks is a vanity metric. It's the quality of backlinks. The domain ranking is important. That's a different area of study. But if we're going by, back to Domain Gaffer's question about name selection, I just try to look for names that are like commercially relevant. Like if I look through this list, I don't see anything, right? I don't like. Let's go back on on expireddomains.net. I'll show you how to find good names on there.
I'm sharing expired domains.
Yeah, go back a little bit. Go back to the main page. Okay, so go click on GoDaddy and click on expired domains. So these are names that are currently expired. Like we can filter this. You see where it says show filter? Scroll down, keep scrolling. Click the end date. Let's select names that are expiring today. Click on that. Okay. And then on the valuation, right there. No, scroll down a little bit. You're right there. Put in, let's put in $1,000. Okay. And then click apply filter. So what we've asked this to do is give us names that are expiring today that GoDaddy thinks are worth over $1,000, right? You can make it $2,000. You can make it nothing. It doesn't matter. So now we have sort of like a sorted out list. Now I'll scroll to the right a little more. Okay. On the valuation, click the valuation. Just click that. And no, the very top where it actually says valuation. And it'll sort them based off the valuation. Okay. So you see, now we're seeing the good stuff, right? You can see the names like 4595.com. It's currently bidding at $9,300, right? pweb.com has a current bid of $2,375. Buyer.com. Like these are the really good names. You see what I'm saying? And so I would look at this list and this is where I want to find names. Like sometimes you see a name that maybe for whatever reason or your timing or your luck, you just find it to be more appealing than what it's going for, right? Obviously, these are going to be more contested because these are really good names. Like pweb has 58 bids on it. And, the valuation per GoDaddy is $13,000. And right now, someone is bidding $2,375 for that name. But that's the type of name that will go for $40,000, $50,000. Right? Do you see that? Schools.com, right? Look at that one. Aquacode. These are really good names. I mean, they sound good. And now you can actually do your research based off a better batch of names. You see what I mean?
MetaMarket, that's a good new domain there.
So you see with the MetaMarket, you can also see that it's taken in numerous extensions, right?
Well, does green mean it's registered?
Green means it's available. Red means it's registered.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, that's usually a good indication, but you still have to do more research. And then you have to be disciplined because you can get carried away. Your ego kicks in. I want to win this auction. We can go to the next page. No, right there. Next page. To your right. Yeah. So there are more names on here. EnterDAO, Park Medical Management. So a name like that is go back to the second page.
I was going for better valuations. I had skipped ahead a lot.
Yeah, it's okay. But you see, you can find really good names this way.
Yeah.
Ideal Community sounds good. Workingfromhome.org sounds like a really good name.
That's great keywords there.
Yeah, exactly. Click on that real quick. You can actually click on it. Yeah. Someone already won that name, I think. Sometimes this stuff, doesn't sync in real time. So obviously someone picked that name up or maybe they renewed it.
Yeah.
So that's,
is this your process roughly, or do you have a different secret sauce?
This is one of the ways that I look for good names. This is how you identify what are the best names in auction. I like gourmet products a lot.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you going in deep and getting into the weeds here. I think that's sort of lacking on a lot of domain podcasts is that people don't actually like show you exactly what they're doing, and they just talk at a really high level about stuff. But I think it's really useful to go through and like see a case study and hear your.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to you for the video share.
I'm driving here. You're doing the thinking and the talking.
Okay.
Team. What about you, Daniel? What kind of process do you have on expired domains?
Yeah, similar. I think, I'd be going through. Usually, I know it's not the be all end all metric, but usually just to save time, I often sort by registered the reg column, and that just sort of. But then I'd filter out for the TLDs that I was particularly interested in. Although that said, I mean, one thing I'd be interested in talking about is, and that we touched on before, is these new TLDs or relatively new TLDs. Do you see a sort of shift happening from, some a company being content with like a 2 or 3 word .com, and maybe depending on the space, certainly in crypto, there seems to be a shift over time, a gradual shift to preferring like a single word, a snappy, emotive single word with a dot, alternative TLD. Did
I
you
think
see?
companies buy names for different reasons. They buy names based off availability and budget, and also their awareness. Some companies don't know the value of a domain name, unfortunately, and some aspire to own the best name possible and will pay whatever it takes because they understand the value of that name. And I think we're in a realm right now where companies and builders and entrepreneurs have more options than, let's say, the last decade. They take validation from what their peers are doing. We talked about .fun. If pump.fun never existed, I doubt there'll be a dev.fun, right? In the tech space, we're seeing the same thing happen with .io. In crypto, we're seeing that with .xyz. In AI, we're seeing that with .ai. So I think what's happening is companies are now, taking validation from their culture within their niche and saying, well, this is acceptable in our industry and we don't look silly with a .ai. They're seeing people raise significant amount of money with .ais, and some of them are looking at it as a rebranding or redirect opportunity. Like, oh, wow, we can pick up a single word in a different alternative extension that's still very respected, right? You'll notice that it's certain TLDs that have this surges, and it's not like, I don't see so many people picking up a .horse, right? No disrespect to that extension, right? Or even .hip hop, right? I think what's happening is companies are taking validation from their competitors, from other industry colleagues, and saying, hey, we use the .xyz. This company just raised $40 million and they go buy .xyz. And aesthetically, a single word just sounds much cooler. In some cases, the .com will never be available because it's either in use or it's out of reach price point. I think companies just have more options, and I think that's good for domain investors who understand this shifting trends, like you phrased it.
Yeah. So to that point, like, I guess, it's the single word, alternative TLD, I feel has value as long as, and this isn't obviously a new idea, like many people look for this, is you've got to match that, the SD with the TLD. So that, obviously there might be some exceptions, but usually, so to go back to my process, Brady, you're looking at this list, I guess I'd be looking at, like names that stand out. So even if it is an alternative TLD, perhaps there would be some sort of value there. For me, I mean, I'm a bit picky at the moment, I guess, but I don't know whether there's anything that majorly stands out for me. I'm just having a look. I just did .me. I don't mind the .me's lately, but it's got to be sort of something that has that length. Like I can share a sale I made recently, and I'm talking about underselling. Like I feel like I undersold this one potentially, and so I sold headshot.me for
Nice.
just I think it was 2,000 or 3,000, and I've been meaning to sort of reprice some of my names, and I hadn't got around to that. But look, honestly, better to have a sale than not, I feel. But I guess I was coming at that angle from a photography perspective.
What was the domain again? Photography. It shuts up me. Okay, like think about that type of name. Like, what was your acquisition cost?
It was pretty low. I think it was a back order. I think it was uncontested, but it was through Nick Sell. Is that the website? I have to double check, but I usually back order in a few different places depending on the TLD. And there's a site that does like a lot of European TLDs and I went through on that one. So I think the cost, to answer your question, was about $60.
Yeah, there you go. So you made a 50x on a .me name.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I think that there's opportunity with other TLDs. I mean, my first significant domain sale was artauctions.io for $7,000, and it was a hand registration. And this is a time where people were saying it's .com or nothing, and I just chose to listen to that with a grain of salt. And if I didn't diversify, I don't think I would have had that first sale that sort of like validated domain investing for me. Now, most of my domain names are .com. Most of the best domain names in the world are .com. But for a newer domainer, there's nothing wrong with picking up a name for $60, regardless of the extension, and flipping it for $3,000 because someone finds it desirable.
Yeah. And I feel there was less risk in that acquisition for me as well, because I've got a friend who's a photographer, and I actually offered it to them first. I said, look, do you have any interest in this domain? Picked it up. I think it's a pretty cool name. It could be about to promote, portrait shots or whatever you wanted to do. I guess it could be a gaming name as well, headshot. Right. But yeah, he passed on it, I guess. Wasn't that keen on that, and so I just had it listed, and so it sort of spreads the risk a bit in that sense. If there's sort of other use cases, or you have.
Have you had any other recent sales you can share?
There's got a couple pending at the moment.
We can talk about randoms.org, which you're trying to sell.
Yeah, sure.
Randoms.org is one of Domain Gaffer's domains at Unstoppable. We actually, just to run an internal experiment, we were trying to build some outbounding tools using AI. So essentially, like, how do we generate a list of leads using Perplexity and OpenAI's operator to browse through Yelp or Google Maps or other directories to find leads. And yeah, one of these processes for randoms.org actually turned up with a solid lead, the owner of random.org, which is like a random number generator and otherwise like random maths resource online. And it seems like a pretty good fit. We're in the late stages of negotiation there for around your target price, which is pretty good.
Let me show you how I use ChatGPT. I think that's
wait, Ish, let's give Domain Gaffer. Do you want to talk about like acquisition of that name, and like did you see random.org as like a potential end user when you initially registered that? Can you walk us through like your acquisition and any other efforts that you put into that domain?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I usually do a few things when looking at a list, or so I guess identify from the list, like from expired domains, pick a few names out. I do a basic Google search. So I think I would have come across random.org and there's I think randomizer.org is another one. So there's sort of several different sites in that sort of realm. Apart from the thing that originally attracted me to the name was just the term randoms. I guess it might be a pretty colloquial term. Do you use that in the US at all, like to describe people like just like strangers? Or
young white girls will call undesirables randoms.
Right.
It's a very well-known term. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like the name from that perspective. I mean, not in a creepy way, I guess, but like almost that it could be like a degen way, or like a sort of like subverting that or owning that term. So .org I think is a good fit with that. So it's sort of like that community, with randoms community, it's a community of randoms.
Yeah.
Also, like another use case could be, like a charity clothing store, or maybe not just a clothing store with random items. So it's such a broad term. So I like the fact that it had like a connotation that wasn't necessarily a negative or was a negative, but could be subverted into a positive. And I like the fact that it's quite a broad term that could be applied to, almost any industry, really.
Yeah.
I felt so, and so that's what attracted me to it. And then maybe, cursories for Google search. These days I'd be looking at .dbd, and just getting some sound. But that for me, once I sort of like a name that much, I think I'd certainly check trademark. That's another, in terms of tools I use, definitely always check. I don't want to be, domain squatting or infringing on any, single.
What tool do you use for that?
I go to like a few different, I had been using the Atom tool.
Yeah, I
as
was
one
going
of
to say, Atoms is nice because it syndicates across a bunch of different patent offices.
Yeah.
Or
So
trademark offices.
So it's usually that one, and then it's It's tmdn.org, so as in trademark domain name.org. That covers like Europe, and then I think there's a US one as well. But yeah, Atom usually covers, as far as I understand it, the US market. I might check if I'm particularly concerned. I might check whether there's been any UDRPs on a particular name. UDRP.tool, I think this was one of the places I use for that. But yeah, if it's passed all those tests and I like the name, at this stage at least, I might be using .db more around pricing to see what the need or the desire for the name is.
Yeah.
In general, and also like Crunchbase or.
Yeah, we've been thinking about, I know I've seen a Twitter bot that will announce like venture capital raises and all the companies that are raising in an attempt, and it's particularly for domainers to like come in and snipe domains from underneath those companies. I'm curious if you guys have other kinds of feeds that give you ideas for registrations. Maybe like there's certain terms trending on Twitter for a day, or I don't know, maybe in scanning patents for like technical terms that you think might be big in the future. Are there other kinds of feeds or discovery mechanisms that you guys use for finding domain ideas?
Sorry, sure.
No, go ahead, man.
Oh no, so I was just going to say, not particularly. No, yeah, it's the short answer. Sorry, I was just later.
Yeah, personally, I don't use any feed. I'm aware of a Twitter page called Domunity that shares.
That's the one.
Yeah, register companies that are raise funding, and it's interesting to observe some of the TLDs that are raising good amounts of money.
What is it? Domunity?
Yeah, DOMMUNICY, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken. Like Domunity.
Yeah,
the D is a span of community. Yeah. I just study trends, man. I just try to study trends that I have a interest in or a passion for. As we're speaking, I got excited because I bought a name that I didn't even remember bidding on. I won the name. It was AIAutomationConsultants.com. My ad feed, maybe because I'm a digital marketer by trade, is filled with a lot of people teaching people how to start making money from AI automation consulting. Like how do you make, how I'm making all these money helping small businesses with AI automation. So I saw AI automation consultants, obviously maybe a couple of days ago, and I bid on it, and I just won that name for $32. So when I buy names like that, I'll Google search it, those keywords. It's such a new term that I don't expect the SEM Rush or Ahrefs or, all these tools to sort of catch up with what's going on. I'm just going by my own in real life observation, right? So I feel like AI automation consultants, it's a very relevant pair of keywords. And anytime I see a bunch of sponsored ads with those keywords, it validates that concept. So when I went on Google and I searched AI automation consultants, I saw about 4 sponsored ads, squares.com, onebridge.tech, and their description is AI automation consulting, right? So, their tagline matters too. That's their H1 from an SEO technical perspective, right? So those are the type of, I see ADSP.ai, artificial intelligence consulting. So having those exact keywords, now, the few things I check for, is this a name that a company will call itself? I think AI automation consultants will hit that checklist. Some people will disagree. But the fact that I can see a company being called AI automation consultant sounds good to me. Is this an industry that I feel like is relevant right now? Yes. And are there people advertising with those keywords? Yes. So to me, this is a great pickup. And then I was alluding earlier, I will go into Chat GPT. I have a customized GPT that I built, and I'm happy to share with people publicly. They can use it if you have Chat GPT, $20 or more paid subscription. I just put in the keyword and it gives me sort of like a breakdown of what that keyword is worth, right? And so I like that. It's sort of like a AI pair that I can sort of like converse with about a keyword. I can ask it questions like, who's an ideal prospect to sell this name to, and create that in the table. Let me know how much they've raised in funding. So I just go into the whole AI rabbit hole in my exploration, right? So I just think, picking up other companies' names that they've raised money on is a very, very difficult approach. For the most part, companies have already secured those names, or other people have. But trends, to me, are really where the opportunity lies. So just observing what trends are relevant right now.
Yeah,
Not speculative.
being on Twitter terminally pays dividends truly, because you've just got your finger on the pulse of all sorts of different trends, whatever that may be.
For sure.
And it pays to be, in the corner of Twitter where people have money.
Yes.
Like crypto and tech, money to spend on domains, and that's generally where you'll find some good ideas. I don't know how they did domaining before ChatGPT. I mean, like
They did it.
I was thinking about changing my Twitter handle yesterday. As much as I love Entropic as like a personal brand, it doesn't pass the radio test. It's hard for people to understand. So I was looking at a couple of different options, and ChatGPT came in clutch, especially 4.5. I find the newest model, 4.5, is really potent for linguistics and like language. Like it actually, I don't know if you guys saw my tweet about like the monk being tempted by the stripper, but actually ChatGPT helped me come up with the captioning for that. I'll share it really quick. Probably a little bit lewd for the live. It's okay.
With the $5, today is $5 Fridays. You got to put out those memes.
Fridays at Unstoppable. ChatGPT helped me come up with this caption. Like it's actually funny now. I never would have expected, like 2 years ago, even up till like very recently, I would not rely on ChatGPT to like make jokes or be funny. But you've probably seen all these like fake 4chan posts that are being generated by the new model, and they're actually pretty funny. So we're like in a new era. Even meme marketing is now at risk of automation by AI. But just for like riffing on ideas, I'll have ChatGPT just like give me like, expand on 10 different prefixes, 10 different suffixes for a certain keyword that I'm interested in. Or, as I was telling Ish last week, like tell me like 50 different office functions that might be automated by AI, and then, turn those into domains that I can check. It's very good for getting out of like writer's block and expanding on an idea that you have.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, well, this has been a great little live stream. Let me check if we have any questions. Looks like we had one. So it's about you guys' like first sales. Let's see. You guys want to share like some of your early share? Ish, you probably shared it, but what about you?
Yeah, so I just like Domain Gaffer, I got into domain investing during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a very nice audience and following on Clubhouse. So we used to have this rooms where we would buy and sell domain names wholesale. So I sold a bunch of names for $300, $1,000 in there, but nothing really significant. My first significant sale was, I mentioned it earlier, auction.io. It was a name that I hand registered about 18 months before. And I remember, I initially got an offer for $1,000, and, I was trained by the best domainers to never accept the first offer, even though I was in profits. And so I counted at 10 grand, and a couple of weeks later of back and forth, they came back and offered 5 grand. And I called the GoDaddy broker and I said, look, if we can get 7,000 and they pay all the fees, I'll accept it. And, they accepted it. And I had to go through the process of creating a wire, a bank account, and it was so much fun. And when I got that money, I was like, this is a real thing. This is a real thing. And, since then I've been chasing that high over and over again.
Yeah.
My last sale was just yesterday. So I'm still selling things.
How is your 30 days of outbounding going? Give us an
Going
update.
very well. I think I've averaged a sale every day.
That's insane.
The second issue is getting people to actually pay. So it's like, okay, yeah, I'll take the name. And then it's like, okay, we have a deal. And then it's like, you call them, oh, he's not available. He's out for 2 days. Or, and then you also have to be very, very, you don't want to come up as too thirsty. So I have a bunch of receivables, so to speak. But I sold a name yesterday, trillionrecords.com, to a record label called $1 Trillion Records. I sold it for $1,000. So I met my goal for the day. And today's another day. We'll try to get another one.
$1,000 a day is pretty solid. Not too
Actually done. I've averaged more than 1,000 a day so far.
And how much? I mean, it's hard to say because it's lagging, right? A sale comes, a month, 5 months, 10 months after you start outbounding it. But how many hours per day of outbounding would you say you're doing?
So with this 30-day challenge, I'm actually looking through my portfolio for names that I bought with the intention of selling to a specific prospect or prospects. The ones that I was like, oh yeah, like we said, when we're picking up those names, we do that Google research. And, 3-4 days later, the name drops in your account and you never do the follow-up. So I'm sort of like pushing myself to follow up with those prospects. Like one of the names that I sold that I'm waiting for payment on was SantaFeFoods.com. Right. When I found that name, I saw that there was a Santa Fe Foods .org, which is a chain of supermarkets. And I was like, why would a chain of supermarkets be using the .org? It goes back to what we said earlier, the lack of availability. The name wasn't available. Maybe somebody wanted a crazy amount of money for it, and they eventually gave up. So I bought that name for, what was it, about $40, $30 at auction. And they verbally agreed to pay $2,500 for it. And so when I called yesterday to try to finalize the deal, she'll call you back, so, it's never completed till they've paid. But I spent about an hour or two just, really doing the outbounding the day before I decide what names I'm going to outbound the next day. So I know what names I'm going to outbound today.
Nice. Yeah. I'm sure it makes it a lot easier. Again, all the money is made on the purchase. I think that's my biggest takeaway from your little spiel on this last week is like, you can outbound all you want. If your names are shit, it doesn't matter. So yeah, that's a great insight. What about you, Daniel? Any closing thoughts here? Any advice for the good people on Twitter out there?
Well, we got to know it's first sale, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, very, very first was probably looking back now, like I didn't intend this because I probably didn't know enough about the space and, but I don't know. It seems a bit domain squatty, to be honest. I was like, it was a real $200 sale of it's secret. The spelling is secret rip, but it's like secret and trip put together. And there's it's like a French sort of touring company, but that was literally in the end like $200. Like I'm not a marketer. I'm terrible at negotiations, or I hope I'm getting better. But I was like, the guy was like, I sort of had to set my price. And then the guy was like solid at $200, and so I just kept coming down until $200. That was a horrible, negotiation on my end. But at least I got that first sale, and so that there was some sort of sense of money. But my first, I guess, proper sale, which I was blown away. Like similar to Ish, I think when you make that first sale, it's like, wow, you can actually make real money from this. Was bottlecap.xyz. And I bought that, I guess, with the intention of, I guess crypto, bottle cap being like a token, like a metaphor for a token. But I think that in the end, it was like a company or someone who had made a film called Bottle Cap who bought it. And so that was about like, that was what about, $30 turned into, just over 2,000. So that was my, first main sale.
Not too shabby.
I haven't sold any .xyz since, and I've been buying them. So,
well, the market's ripe for it. It's the right time. I have yet to get my first sale, so my role here, like I was telling you guys earlier, is to be the dummy in the room, asking all the noob questions that everyone on Twitter wants to ask but can't. So hopefully we've produced some good content today. Any closing thoughts? Any like words of wisdom, Domain Gaffer, that you want to share with folks?
Oh, look, I'm still very much learning myself. I mean, I guess what I've found useful is sort of, find you'll naturally have an area of interest and then sort of like an approach that I think suits you. So, I mean, certainly take on as much information as you can and then refine that down. So I think for me, as I said at the start, like I've got a love for language. I like the power of words. I've got this sort of sense of wanting to build on certainly more things that I'll ever have time to do. So I sort of favor, when I look through lists, I look for words that similar to, the Marie Kondo technique of only keep what gives you joy. I think it's similar to domains for me. It's like if you get a spark of something, you sort of want to verify that with some data if possible, and looking and using the tools available to you. But for me, I've got to have that spark of, oh, I like that. I want to, I might be able to use that. And then, and obviously you don't want to overpay for it. So you've got to, work that out as well. And I think Ish's approach of working out the end of the journey, so like the end user first is a great approach. And that's, certainly relevant if you have no use in the name. For me, I'll potentially still buy the name, even if I don't find a specific end user, if I think I might use it myself. So it depends on what you're looking to get from the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes that end user is you now because of this AI tools. My advice to people is to get familiar with this AI tools. They're only going to get easier and better. And always understand that the utility of a domain name is not limited to just flipping it for a couple of profits. Like sometimes as domain investors, we do a disservice to ourselves. My goal is to generate consistent cash flow. And sometimes, it's just taking a blended strategy of, okay, what names can I build that I can get traffic to that can sustainably earn me revenue from affiliate marketing, from, banner ads or whatever the case might be. So those are like the things that we don't talk about enough, right? In domain investing, because the domain is the land, and you can do so much with land. You could put structure on it. You could sell it as raw land to another land investor who's going to eventually sell it to someone who's going to build on it one day. So we're at the realm of the golden age of domaining. We're more than just domain flippers, if we choose to be. We're just, you don't need to have a coding background. You just have to play with the tools. You get better with them. And AI. That's the game changer.
Yeah. Well, wise words to end on. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate the questions from the audience. And yeah, you've got about 11 and a half hours left on $5.com Fridays. So jump on over with all this newfound wisdom that you have from the stream and go crazy, but not too crazy, as Domain Gaffer told us earlier.
No more than 100 per person.
Reinvest your proceeds. Be moderate here. Everything in moderation. All right, guys.
If you find a need to register more than 100 and registrations, it might be time for therapy.
Yeah, we're providing an easy vice for people here. We might need to reconsider the morality of the 100 domain limit at Unstoppable. All right, guys. Thank you again, and we'll catch you next time.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.